price is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for August 19th, 2025. Well, hey, we made it through yesterday. No major announcement out of the White House on the negotiations, but it does look like progress is being made, and there may be an opportunity for peace in Russia-Ukraine war. We'll see how this progresses, but for now, it looks like everything is feeling a little bit better. Let's take a look at what happened overnight here in the markets. Well, we had Australian markets down $63.10 or 0.70%. The Hong Kong fell $53.95 or 0.21%. South Korea dropped by $25.72 or 0.81%. The Nikkei, after setting a new record high yesterday, falling by 168.02 points, 0.38%. India continued on higher, and it was really the only one that had any benefit last night, up 103.70 or 0.42%. And Shanghai fell by a whopping 74 points or 0.02%. If we take a look at what's happening in Europe markets this morning, Europe is green across the board. We've got the DAX up 0.27% this morning, 65.55. We've got the FTSE up $18.33 or 0.20%. And the CAC is higher this morning by 62.05 or 0.79% this morning. Feeling just a little bit hopeful over there about a potential end to the war. If we take a look at U.S. futures, however, U.S. futures have just a little bit of a different opinion, kind of a wait-and-see opinion. Right now, the Dow futures down just ticked 28 points even. We have the S&P 500 futures down $5.75, and the NASDAQ futures down 22 points here this morning. So just a little bit of bearishness in those markets as we wait for, the Jackson Hole Symposium that's going to be coming up here. We've got a decision, not a decision, but the minutes from the FOMC that will be coming out Wednesday afternoon. So just a little bit of uncertainty that the market is dealing with here. Let's take a look at what's going on in bond prices here this morning. Our bonds are pulling back a little bit, easing up on that pressure. 2-year bonds coming in at 3.76%. We've got the 10-year bonds coming in at 4.32%, and that 30-year bond has pulled back to 4.92% this morning. If we take a look at what is happening to the U.S. dollar as a result, U.S. dollar is a little bit weaker here today. We'll want to be keeping an eye on that because it's going to be, if we lose this area of price support in here in this move, I think there's going to become some pretty serious worry on that dollar. So watch that carefully here on the U.S. dollar. Right now down 18 cents in the futures. If we take a look at the impacts as a result in precious metals. If we look at gold, gold moving up a little bit here today. Right now up $11.90 an ounce. Keep an eye on that. And if we take a look at silver, and by the way, that's the futures prices. Gold is $3,387, almost $88 an ounce. And silver this morning moving to the upside a little bit as well, with silver futures at $38.12 an ounce. So keep an eye on that. A little bit more, well, I shouldn't say a little bit more, much more bullish pattern in here than gold. If we take a look at other things in here, we've got copper just a tiny little bit higher here, like, not even a half a cent. But trying to hold in here on copper. Platinum this morning is higher by $18.50 an ounce, pushing up. Yesterday it pushed up and then ended up fading back. And then palladium had a reasonably good day going, and then it just gave it up yesterday as well. Palladium right now, though, up $7.40 an ounce this morning. If we take a look at the impacts here on cryptos, well, we had a pretty rough day in those cryptos, pretty strong pullback. It did bounce by the end of the day, but this morning we're gapping down again. We've got Bitcoin down $806 a coin. Now, if you're trading IBIT anyway, you'll want to be watching this area price support in here to see if that can hold. We're kind of slipping this upside trend, so watch that carefully. Now, if we take a look at Ethereum, Ether here, we've got a nice little resting pullback that's coming into that, down $60.28 a coin, 1.38%. But remember, we were just running so hard in here. This is just a nice little resting pullback back to trend. So nothing about that isn't bullish. If we take a look at the rest of cryptos, well, down across the board here this morning in those cryptos. Let's take a quick look at oil. We've got oil this morning moving just a little bit lower, maybe easing some of those pressures with the Ukraine situation. USO pulling back just a little bit. Oil futures right now down 72 cents at 61.97 a barrel. Brent crude's coming in at 65.84 a barrel, and natural gas continuing to pull back here, headed back to recent lows, down about 3 cents here this morning. So keep an eye on that. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up and let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can gain a little bit of information about how we might want to approach the market for today. First off, let's take a look here at the diamonds. We want to shake off that bias. We really want to look at the chart for what it is, not for what we want it to be. Now, that being said, there's really no way you can look at this chart with bearishness. We've got a little upside trend that we've resumed. We broke through resistance levels here in the chart. We're holding up here on a bullish little pattern on that little resting pullback in here. So if the bulls can continue to find that inspiration in here, then I think there's every reason to believe we could see this pushing on through and up toward blue sky highs and new record highs in the diamonds. There's nothing in that chart at the moment that's bearish. However, if the bears were to come up with anything in the data today along the way, then we could have that situation where a pullback in here could occur, and breaking this support might raise a little bit of concern in the chart if those bears were to do that. Breaking down through here, however, is where I think the real pressure in the market could really pick up. But so far, no signs of that here in the diamonds chart. If we look at the SPY, just fading back. There's nothing in here that's bearish. We just zoomed to the upside after that little pullback in here, holding on to this price support. So once again, there's nothing in this chart right now that suggests bearishness, just a little bit of rest after quite a run to the upside. If the bulls can find that inspiration in here, then we might see that push to the upside. This period of time, mid to late August, is when it's probably one of the biggest vacation times out there. A lot of folks are gone traveling, doing the things that they do here for their time off and vacation, and so it's not uncommon that we see relatively low volume here in this period of market. So don't be surprised if we continue with a little bit of choppiness, and with all these world events going on as well, could just see that little bit of choppiness here in the market. So maybe just a little bit of rest, but I got to tell you, it might be frustrating have to be patient and wait. We've kind of been trained here so far this year that it's just all up all the time. But just be patient here. Try to not over trade, waiting to see if that's going to push through to the upside. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say in here, pushing down to this support looks like a possibility. Breaking that support would probably raise a little bit of concern. But once again, I don't think we're going to see any kind of major worry here in the QQQ unless we were to break down below, maybe someplace like that. So certainly possible, but just keeping in mind that there's nothing in that chart that's bearish. Looking at the QQQ, once again, very bullish chart. We're just going to rest. We're going to pull back here. We're holding on to that breakout level here in the chart. There's just nothing in here that's bearish. If the bulls can find that inspiration, every reason to believe that we'll pick up in here, see some more record highs in the QQQ. If the bears were to get going, we would raise maybe just a tiny little bit of concern if we broke down below there. But I think if we start breaking through levels down in here, that's where real fear might begin coming up in the queues. So just keep a close eye on that. And our IWM, again, there's just no way you can look at IWM and not see a bullish chart. Little resting pullback here after breaking through this resistance here in the chart. And if we get a little bit of bullish push, I see every reason that we could push this up through this resistance in the chart, and we'll start working back up toward those record highs. We got a lot of work here yet in IWM to do that, but certainly looks like a possibility as bullish as this pattern is setting up. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say and we were to push back, breaking back down below here would probably raise some concern, but where the real concern would come in is if we break down through that area of price support. So keep an eye on the Russell. If we take a look at our VIX popped with a little bit of fear yesterday, pulled back, filled the gap. We're really not seeing fear here in the market. As long as AI is doing well, everything else can seem to be falling completely apart. Consumer sentiment falling apart. Everything can be falling apart, and we're still going to be bullish because we're such believers in AI that we will just pound into those stocks and continue to push them higher. So watch that carefully here. It would only be if there's some kind of a sentiment shift, and we had a little bit of a worry. Sam Altman from OpenAI yesterday suggesting that AI stocks are in a bubble. That's raising some concern, but I think the market's going to just shake it right off and keep pounding money into anything AI. So watch that carefully here. If the bears have anything to say. Maybe a pushback up here this morning on this little gap down. If it holds into the open, we'll be seeing checking out that. But breaking through up here would probably be a little bit of concern for the market. At the same time, I think there's every reason to believe, looking at those price patterns in the indexes, that the bulls are going to push on through, and I suspect we could retest these lows down here in the VIX and even push on lower here because, well, that's just what the market's doing right now. Nothing matters but hurry up and buying. If we take a look at our T2122, our T2122 indicator showed us yesterday just a little tiny bit of fade here in the market yesterday. We're almost down to the mid-range here. This selling this morning, we might open up down here in the mid-range. But if those bulls can find inspiration, then I think there's every reason to believe, you can see this little upside trend right in here, that we could see those bulls grab a hold in here and push this right on through to the upside, back up here again. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration, we're kind of straddling the fence here, and we're going into that Jackson Hole Symposium. We got all of this stuff going on with Russia, Ukraine out there that could certainly inflame some reason for bulls or bears to get going in here. And then, of course, these retail earnings. We're starting off today on a little bit of bad note with Home Depot missing on its earnings. So retail maybe showing a little bit of struggle here so far this morning anyway. Watch that carefully. Now our T2108 yesterday, just a tiny little bit higher, even though volume was extremely weak on the day. So we're holding on, little upside trend in here, holding on to the 50%. If the bulls can find inspiration, well, maybe we start pushing back up toward that 60% area, this recent high up here. Watch that carefully. If the bears were to have anything to say, we've got 50% there to maybe hold us. And if that were to break down, I would say down here around 45, there's some more support. So no particular worries there in the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average. And I'm going to say the same here on T2107. There's really nothing in here that suggests any major problem. Just a little tiny bit of push up yesterday, more of a rest on very low volume, holding in here on this little upside trend. I think if the bulls have anything to say, we could be up here testing 50% in the chart pretty quickly. And if the bears were to push back, well, we're holding in here around 45. We got nice support there. Pushing on through that, we've got some pretty good support down around 40% here as well. So I don't see any effort by the bears at all to do much damage. It's all bull push to the upside. And then if we take a look at our T2101, we enjoyed a nice little breadth increase yesterday, even though we didn't get much out of that. And it could be a little bit on the bearish side in that breadth increase. We're coming back up into this downtrending situation here in the chart, broken through a lot of resistance in here. So watch this carefully. We need to see that breadth continue to follow through to the upside. If we're going to be bullish, we need to see that breadth following through on the bullish side. If all of a sudden we see that breadth spiking out on a bearish day, that's going to be a little bit of a concern and could bring in those bears for an attack. So watch carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar. Oh, come on. For our economic calendar here for today, our economic calendar, we have got, well, just a little tiny bit to be concerned about here this morning. We've got housing starts and permits today. They're looking for the housing starts to decline here and the permits to be ever so slightly lower. I don't know that that's going to be anything majorly bearish unless we were to miss and fall lower than this. here in the market. If it happens to come in better than that, look for the market to celebrate on that. We've got e-commerce retail sales in here. That was a 0.1 last time. We have no consensus estimate in there on that. We've got bond announcements. We've got a bond auction on the 6-week, and we've got Bauman in here speaking. So I just, not a lot for the market to get too excited about. As you plan into Wednesday, we get mortgage applications, Atlanta business inflation expectations, petroleum status as usual, some bond auctions and some Fed speak, but the one that might be a little bit market moving in here is going to be that FOMC. We'll probably see some volatility around that on the minutes release. Let's take a look at what's happening in our earnings calendar. In our earnings calendar, we've got a little bit more going on today. And as I mentioned, Home Depot missing on earnings. Pushback, they reiterated their guidance, even though second quarter in a row they've missed on earnings. And we push down and push right back up here in the pre-market. But kind of keep an eye on these earnings here this morning. We've got a few in there to be watching and could be a little bit noteworthy. So take a screenshot of that if you want to catch those notable reports here this morning. Now remember, we had Palo Alto reporting yesterday. That had a nice little overnight pop in here on its earnings. Big stretch in there. Looking to gap on through, and we've got a gap above here that could easily be filled, so watch that carefully if the bulls can get going. So there are some good earnings still rolling out here in the market, but there is just that little bit of uncertainty about these retailers, so keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at some of the stocks that we have setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Remember, even an emoji counts as engagement with a video, so thank you so much for everyone who does do that. And if you have questions or anything that I can help you with, please leave that in the comments. I do try to answer those comments. So if you have questions or ideas for me, I would love to hear that in the comments. Let's take a look at some of the stocks that we have setting up for today. Remember, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market, remembering that anything is possible here. We could have just about anything happen in this market right now, but there are lots of bullish charts out there to be thinking about, and really more than anybody could potentially trade. I would just caution everyone to be careful not to chase stocks to the upside, because that could be a little bit of a problem. First off, take a look at STX. STX, I mentioned yesterday, was setting up nicely. Pop the alert in here on STX. That's looking very, very good. WDC continuing to look very good as well, so watch that carefully. Just a little bit more energy that could pop on through to the upside. RIG is one that I've been watching here pretty closely, and so far it just hasn't been able to get up there and pop through that alert, but watch that carefully. That could go at any time, looking pretty good in there. NVIDIA, obviously a very tight consolidation here in NVIDIA, and everyone, I mean, it's like every day some analyst or some institution comes out reiterating how great NVIDIA is and that you should buy it. So watch that carefully in here. NVIDIA trying to push here through that upside. I think that's worth paying attention to. Abercrombie, I was looking at an opportunity in here that has fallen all apart. And again, there is some concern here on these retailers. So now on any rally back, as we broke down this support and broke that trend, any rally back or consolidation, if we rally back up into here and can't break through, I'd be watching for the potential short. If it just runs sideways in here like this, again, bear flag, I would be looking for that potential short to come in there. So failing up here, you got to start watching the other side of that market. Kind of disappointing to see some of those falling apart like that, but we've got to trade the trend. If we take a look at Shopify, now Shopify, one of those retailers, just had a really good earnings report here a couple of weeks ago. Nice little resting consolidation as we pull back. You'll notice there's some price support right in here, but if we continue that little rest or pullback, we could see that come all the way back down into that area on that rest or consolidation, or it could choose to hold right in this area on that trend, and I would look for that next opportunity to the upside there. So keep an eye on that. Yesterday, Qualcomm, after making this nice stretch, this alert up here that popped out and failed, you can see we're back up here. We cross down and we break down below support, cross up and show hold. That's where we look for that opportunity to get involved here in a chart like that. So keep an eye on that. This morning, you might want to be keeping an eye on Lowe's. Now, Lowe's getting some negative impact, almost more negative impact than Home Depot is getting from its own earnings report. But just keep in mind, Lowe's will report tomorrow. Keep an eye on that. GLW continues to look fantastic in here. Very, very strong. No worries or concerns there. When we look at some of these big banks, nice little recovery in here and hold. I would look for that opportunity for like Citibank, Bank of America, any of those to move on higher. Goldman Sachs is setting up here, looking for a good upside opportunity in that as well. Keep an eye on those. Some of the oil sector stocks, well, some of them are trying in here. We've been stuck in this range here for quite a while on ConocoPhillips. This would be a great candidate for an iron condor type trade, but watch that carefully in here if we can get something going in that oil sector when we relieve, or if we relieve, this pressure from the Ukraine war. We'll want to be watching that pretty closely. Take a look at some of the telecommunications out there. I've mentioned Verizon before. Verizon breaking through this downtrend in here. Any kind of little rest or pullback in here, I think, sets up that next opportunity for Verizon. Good, strong dividend payer if you guys are looking for something to just hold for a while and have something in that portfolio that's just got that slow, steady type growth in it, like I've done here in my AT&T and AT&T in from way back over here. Huge profit in this trade, continuing to just slowly grind to the upside. So not a big fast mover or anything, but something that can balance your portfolio a little bit. Keep an eye on that. TMUS is also making some really nice bullish moves in here. So a little rest, a little consolidation in here. You might want to take a look at things like T-Mobile. Taking a look at other stocks out there, my goodness, there's just so many that are bullish out here. Regions Financial, you can see we broke support, rallied back up, trying to hold some support here in that higher low. So watch that carefully in Regions. We could resume that upside trend in here. Boeing has been holding in here beautifully. Nice little rest in here, pushing back up toward these all-time highs. Watch that carefully. I could certainly see Boeing pushing on through to the upside. Our casinos have been looking strong. A little bit of pullback here yesterday, but watch that carefully for that opportunity. Things like Altria, just super, super strong. little rest coming into that. Watch for that next opportunity in Altria, looking pretty decently there. So there's plenty of stocks out there. UEC, I think, is on the uranium side very worth keeping an eye on. Take a look at like UUUU, very worth keeping an eye on, trying to break through this resistance yesterday, showing some strength there. I keep an eye on some of those trades. So there's a few for you to pay attention to. I want to keep the video a little bit shorter than yesterday's. I want to wish you all a very good day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for the kind support to the channel. Means a lot to me. You guys are awesome. So take care, be safe, and as always, I wish you all the very best. Have a great day, everyone.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.